Hello? Can you hear me? Yeah. I am here. My name is Professor Richard DEMARCO, and for many years I was professor at the university in England of European Cultural Studies. That means the cultural heritage of Europe. Later this afternoon, I will speak about my work as Professor of European Cultural Studies, but also about my work at the Edinburgh Festival. I am very pleased also to be speaking to you as someone who spent 10 years of my life as a school teacher on primary level and secondary level. So I am here representing education as well as culture, education on 3 levels: primary, secondary, and tertiary. And I'm here not as someone with a British passport, but someone who is a European. And I benefit from the European cultural heritage, the Greco-Roman dynamic, the Christo-Judaic dynamic, which has created what we call European civilization. I'm asking everyone to put their address down, their name and address, because we cannot go on meeting like this. This is ridiculous. I speak to you, I don't know who you are. I need to continue the dialogue. I am now pleased indeed to introduce my friend and colleague who represents an extraordinary experiment in education linked to culture. And it is so successful that after 21 years, it has been adopted throughout the world. In places like Soweto, in Johannesburg in South Africa, in places like Nepal, Kathmandu. It's an experiment in education in which artists at primary level, aged 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, are taken seriously so that their idea of being educated is different from the concept of education which exists in most countries today, to produce a way of life which does not take seriously the language of art. My friend, Douglas Graham, is the patron par excellence of Room 13. Now, Room 13 has become famous worldwide, and it is made manifest in Spain in one city, not in Madrid, not in Barcelona, but in Bilbao. My God. What is it about Bilbao that has accepted the world of Room 13? Big question. Why do I believe that Bilbao is not just about the Guggenheim Museum? It's about a city representing a way of life of the Basque culture, which is not well known in Europe. This is a culture rich in, how can I say, its reality. It has existed from the beginning of Europe, just like the culture of Scotland. Now we know that Scotland is in the United Kingdom, but I like the idea of the Basque culture and the Scottish culture coming into being in fruitful dialogue. My friend Douglas Graham does not live in Edinburgh. He lives in the Highlands of Scotland, near Inverness, my goodness me, a long way away from Edinburgh, the world capital of festivals. He has observed the miracle of Room 13 from the moment it was born out of the passion and commitment of children, not adults, freeing themselves from the restrictions of an educational system which destroys creativity in most cases. Now, I am here, aged, my goodness me, I have to face my birthday in a few days. And I'd like it to be my 25th birthday, or my 35th birthday, or my 45th birthday, or my 55th birthday, or my 65th birthday, or my 75th birthday. But unfortunately, or fortunately, my birthday is my 85th birthday. And recently, there was a film made where I was in fruitful dialogue with young people, some of them celebrating their 5th birthday. And I believe the language of art enables all of us to speak to every level of society. And I ask you one question. How old do you have to be to consider yourself as an artist? There is not enough time for me to explain that as a school teacher teaching primary children, I knew that the whole class were artists. Every child. You could tell they were artists. They played games. They made drawings. They danced. They sang. They were everything I want a human being to be. And they did not look like politicians. They did not look like bankers. Thank God. They did not look like the people who are destroying our environment. Thank heavens, Pope Francis has made his latest encyclical about man's relationship with the environment, with plants, with flowers, with trees, with the winds, with the currents of the sea. Children understand better than adults. So, we are going to dedicate this session to a great friend who lived his life as a child and as an adult in a place called Fort William. Please write that down, Fort William. It's all about the English domination of the Scots. The police. Because the Scots, at one time, not long ago, fought for the idea of a Polish, French-speaking, French-speaking, Italian-speaking king. Not a German-speaking king. And this was all about the story of Bonnie Prince Charlie. Maybe you know. It's a very interesting story. Fort William, unfortunately, is the last place on earth where you expect to find creativity. It's about a small town damaged by the loss of industry. It did not find a new way of living beyond the industrial world. So in a way, I would like everybody who lives in Fort William to come here and to see how this city has been transformed from an industrial wasteland into something extraordinary, beautiful, inspiring. So this talk will be dedicated to someone called Charles Kennedy, who died a few days ago. And he was the most important politician in the British Parliament, loved by everyone because he spoke the truth, because he spoke about his love for humanity. And he is the personification of Room 13. Please write down his name. You should know. He is my favorite politician in the whole of Europe. He was. His spirit still lives. He was buried in the local Roman Catholic Church where his parents were buried. He is an inspiration to me. And I will now have to consider how I persuade all of you to come and see the miracle of Room 13, born 21 years ago. Room 13 is the future of any festival of the arts, including, in particular, the Edinburgh Festival. Without Room 13, you cannot have the concept of a festival of the arts, because Room 13 represents the world of education at the beginning of our lives. And now it gives me great pleasure to speak to someone who helped Room 13 to begin its life. So I now ask Douglas Graham to speak to you in a way that I cannot, because he knows the story from the beginning. Douglas.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you. Richard has mentioned Charles Kennedy, and there is a phrase that I would like to use in remembering Charles, and the phrase is simply, "There will never be your like again." There will never be your like again. It's a great privilege for me to be here this morning, and I should be speaking in the local language. I can't, but all I can say to you is Cúd Míle Fílte, which is Scottish Gaelic for 1,000 welcomes or 1,000 greetings. I'm a retired solicitor. I was a notary for 35 years. I am now enjoying life. Particularly, I'm enjoying life because I'm involved with an organisation called High Life Highland. High Life Highland is an arm's-length organisation set up by Highland Council, the local authority, and its duties are to deliver the Council's statutory obligations in relation to adult learning, archives, arts, leisure facilities, museums, outdoor education, sport, and youth work. I have to look at that because I can't remember them all. We have an annual budget of around £22 million. It delivers its services to a population of 232,000 people over a rather wide rural area. That rural area is 33% of the landmass of Scotland, 11.4% of Great Britain, and if you can't get your head around that, perhaps you can get your head around the fact that the area is approximately the size of Belgium. And High Life Highland has very similarities with the thematic areas of this conference in relation to education, business, art and sport. I've been involved with Room 13 since 2007 when I acted as their notary in establishing Room 13 International and achieving charitable status for them. Let's see if this thing works. Good, it does. I was present and subsequently supported the reporting of a presentation to the Scottish Parliament on the work of Room 13 entitled Creativity Equals Capital. And Professor DEMARCO attended that presentation along with Terry Ann Newman. That was in the same year that Professor DEMARCO was awarded the European Parliament's medal as European Citizen of the Year, which was truly well-deserved recognition of his contribution to art and culture throughout Europe. Key to this contribution has been his experience of teaching, as he has said, at primary, secondary and tertiary level, and this has been reflected in numerous honours which have been made to him by cultural institutions throughout Europe. In his experience, Professor DEMARCO has acknowledged the thinking of Joseph Beuys, the German artist and philosopher with whom he worked on many occasions, and whom he introduced to the length, breadth and depth of Scotland, and in particular, the role of the geographical place as a fundamental contributor to the role of creativity for the betterment of society and the environment. The example of Room 13 has sometimes been described as an experiment. I would suggest it's an experiment in creativity which has now passed well beyond the proof of concept stage and into practical reality and action, delivering immeasurable benefits for those involved and whom it touches. Professor DEMARCO has acknowledged that Room 13 International is for him a clear demonstration that art and education are two sides of the one coin. The original Room 13 started in Coole Primary School in the West Highlands of Scotland in 1994. As Professor DEMARCO has indicated, Coole is an urban housing estate built to house workers to service industry, introduced to the area in the forms of an aluminium smelter and a wood pulp mill to make use of available hydroelectric power. It is an urban housing estate in a rural setting. The original Room 13 studio has magnificent views of Ben Nevis, the highest mountain in Great Britain, and amid dramatic scenery. This was a presentation at the Scottish Parliament on Creativity Equals Capital and the report that was subsequently produced. Now there's an interesting quote, isn't it? Every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist once she/he grows up. And that's attributed to Pablo Picasso. And that is on the wall of the Room 13 studio as you enter. So there's a fundamental acknowledgement of what Room 13 is about, which greets you as you go in. In Room 13, young people of primary school age have the creative freedom, resources and support to follow their ideas and interests through the creativity of the arts. Questioning, exploring and constructive criticism are actively encouraged. Room 13 is not just about art, but about creativity and learning in its broadest sense. When we established Room 13 International in 2009, and it was granted charitable status by the appropriate regulator authority in Scotland, and I hope there's nobody from that regulator authority here when I say that that was no easy task. The aims of Room 13 International are to support and facilitate the growth of the worldwide network of Room 13 studios and to promote the value of a higher quality of creative entrepreneurial education with particular emphasis on philosophy and the arts. I apologise for the quality of this. This is a photograph of a map on a wall in a studio, hence the denigration of quality. But if you were able to see it close at hand, you will see that it indicates, and down the right-hand side there is a list of the various networks of Room 13 studios worldwide. And as Richard has mentioned, thanks to the efforts of our colleague on the platform, Heide, Jack, we are looking at the establishment of a Room 13 in Bilbao. Room 13 studios share the common principle that it is run by a group of young people who are elected onto a management team. With support from their artist in residence, they work together to raise funds, to order art and other materials, manage the studio space, deal with correspondence, bills, visitors, media requests, and make decisions about the conduct of the studio. Professor DEMARCO, through his DEMARCO European Art Foundation, has committed himself to supporting the work of Room 13 in whatever way it can. In particular, very generously, he has indicated that the DEMARCO European Art Foundation is willing to make available aspects of its archive, which he has accumulated over a period in excess of 50 years, and which has contributed to the breaking down of international boundaries, using art as the common language to overcome barriers, to promote cross-cultural activities, and to achieve the discovery of creativity in everyday life. Richard DeMarco very modestly mentioned his birthday. Well, 5 years ago, in the opening of the members' debate in the Scottish Parliament to honour Professor DeMarco's 80th birthday, Linda Fabiani, MSP, and a fellow Cavaliere della Repubblica Italiana, acknowledged the importance of the archive. And she said it was important, quote, to Scotland and to the family of nations to which Scotland belongs, and that the archive is a, quote, unique resource that links Scotland and Europe through many artists. The archive is a collaborative artwork made by countless visual and performing artists, and to those professionals must be added those who have revealed the creative potential in all of us, not only as adults, but, for example, as the primary school artists of Room 13. In the 21 years since Room 13 came into being, there have been several changes in the culture in schools across the UK and beyond. Schools are more democratic and participatory. They host pupil councils, committees and action groups. Enterprise, citizenship and global awareness are embraced as core curriculum subjects. Creativity is a hot topic, and a plethora of educational projects exist to promote engagement with arts and artists, many even styling themselves as led by children for children. In this changed environment, Room 13 remains largely indifferent to those educational trends. It has always been an organic association among artists of all ages to attempt to strike at what the core of what art and perhaps life is all about. Room 13 is unique for the following 5 reasons. And I thought that modern technology being what it is, we go back to the good old-fashioned blackboard. Room 13 questions what art is and who is qualified to make it. By that we mean that Room 13 demonstrates that child art at its best can be as powerful and as evocative as work made by any adult artist. Room 13 is genuinely artist-led, by nature innovative and entrepreneurial. Ideas and motivation come from the studio floor. Any individual that walks through the studio door has potential to think, make, develop and direct the work going on. Instead of storing up their education and skills for use in the distant future, young people become actors as artists, thinkers and entrepreneurs. Room 13 facilitates true collaboration between young people and adults. By demonstrating that adults and young people can work in a consistent, productive and mutually stimulating way, Room 13 presents a challenge to the accepted culture of interactions between professional artists and young people as the short-term, one-way, single-outcome delivery of a very specific project or workshop. Room 13 combines the teaching of art and business practice. The Room 13 studio facilitates a long-term engagement with a community by supporting the resident artists to adopt a method of working which has an enterprising aspect to it that enables them to sustain themselves and develop their practice in the role. The young artists acquire similar skills and mindset as they apply the methodology of business practice to keep the studio stocked and equipped. And I have to say, slightly on the side, that when we were endeavouring to obtain charitable status for Room 13 International, trying to persuade the regulatory authority that the management team was composed of 8, 9 and 10-year-olds was an interesting task. Room 13 brings together an international community of artists who are thinking and working in a social context. The Room 13 community attracts participation from artists who embrace the chance to think and work in a very different way. The very existence of the studios offers interested artists an element of chance for things to happen, enabling ideas, projects, and artworks to grow organically and value the opportunities of a Room 13 studio creates just by being a collective of makers with an open mind. Before inviting Professor DEMARCO to give you a further contribution, if we can get the technology right, we would like to show you 2 brief video clips. One is of the report and the presentation before the Scottish Parliament, and the other is a recent session which Professor DEMARCO had when he was grilled by the pupils of Room 13. Can we...
First, DEMARCO?
I think, yeah.
Well, Room 13 is not just about the art world, it's about education. And it's the perfect balance between the world of the artist, whatever that might be, and the world of education on an absolute front line.
Ellie, why do you come up to 13 every day?
To draw and have fun. And I like to paint, I like to help. You just get to express yourself, really.
Everybody is born to dance, to sing, to write poetry, to write stories, to tell the story of their lives, of their happiness, and waking up every day. And art is the one language we use to say that we enjoy the business of being alive. When I think of all the studios that I've been in, all the studios in all the art schools all over the world, when I think of all the spaces where art is made, I think there's no doubt in my mind that what happens here is magical.
You can come up with friends and you know everyone, and it just lets your imagination go wild. So that's how it stands out.
How did you know that Untitled was here?
Because all my friends told me that it was up here. Yeah. Like, being new to the school is quite a big thing because you don't really know what's happening and what's going to be there. But when I heard it's in 13, I just really wanted to find out what it was, and I just came up here, and then my eyes fell through my head or something like that.
At first?
Because my eyes fell through my head because I wasn't expecting it to be so bright and everyone's kind to each other.
And Mr. Hamilton showed us all about it, and when I joined the school I wasn't that sure if I wanted to do it or not, and then it was kind of not a very nice day, so I just came up, and then I really enjoyed it.
First of all, I think art is timeless. It's the one language which we can use, which is going to last forever.
I think it has an age, and that's forever.
What is the best thing you've done in 13, I could ask you?
My best thing I've done is my project that I'm doing is a crime scene. It's not finished it yet, but we're in the middle of doing it. It's we're done. We put it on the black piece of paper, and we've drawn somebody in white chalk, and we've made a background story to go with it. So.
What was your ambition as a child?
That's a very difficult question, because I think I wanted to find out who I was, and I think my ambition was to find a way of going to Italy.
Well, that's quite hard. It would probably have been to have fun, I would say.
Point I should have mentioned in introducing that is that, of course, that film was made by the pupils. Very important to remember that. We haven't. How are we doing for time? Are we all? Want to see the other? Do we want to look at the other clip?
Yeah, I think it's important.
If we could.
Yeah. I need your feedback. I need your addresses, so I hope you're writing down your address in the book that we've passed round. I don't want this to be the one and only time that we, on this planet, in this life of ours, that we are engaged. I want to know what you're doing. Why are you here? why were you interested in this subject of room 13? Room 13, of course, is a room that nobody wants. Unlucky room. So the school didn't want it. They abandoned it. And the children occupied it and showed the school, the teachers, the headmaster, how education can be completely creative, so that you don't look at a child and wait for that child to grow up. You understand? They are already in the image of God. They are already complete. So you don't wait until they go to school in secondary level. You certainly don't wait until they go to university when they get a stupid, how can I say, commendation to say that they're okay. No. We must use the energy of children at primary and secondary levels so that we can create a society that is for everyone, and that we can give the truth embedded in art to everyone. Art is very simple, according to John Keats, the great English poet. He said, all you need to know of art is truth. It is truth and beauty and truth. So that which is beautiful and true is art. It's also the only language we've got which ascends at its highest point to the level of prayer. It's like praying properly and acknowledging the fact of our human condition. We are born, if we're not careful, to make fools of ourselves. We are born, if we're not careful, to become rich and famous and celebrities and all that nonsense. We are born to be able to tell the truth and the beauty of our lives. We are born to show our commitment to the lives of our parents, our grandparents, our great-great-grandparents, and all the people who caused us to live our lives where we live our lives. So, here we go. We might cut it short. Fast forward, yeah. Every child is instinctive.
This is the main working space where everything is made. It's not organised, but it kind of is, because you can find everything you need here.
Although it looks like there's been an explosion in an art factory, it's organised in its own special way. The room is divided up into sections: Richard's corner, the office, the main working space, cupboard and cleaning area. We also have a notice board outside.
You have to be sensible in room 13, but the most important thing is to have fun. All of the art produced in room 13 is very different. We use a range of different materials, and we are able to work in many different ways, such as printmaking, photography, painting, drawing, sculptures, and many more.
This canvas is by Beth Robertson. This canvas reminds me of thorns or deer antlers. She used masking tape, paint and newspaper too. It's just like a forest and doesn't look very inviting.
People come up at break and lunch. Some classes come up to do projects with Richard, and sometimes he goes down to them. If one person wants to come up, you have to finish your work and ask your teacher.
This is Casey McLean's artwork. She called it charcoal circles. It reminds me of a baby scan, ripples in the water, or optical illusions.
Okay, this is the office. The office is where the management team work on keeping room 13 alive.
Hi, I'm Kieran.
And I'm Jordan.
And we're the managing directors of Room 13.
I'm Bethany and I'm the secretary.
I'm Cara.
And I'm Ella.
And we're Room 13's treasurers.
I'm Natasha and I'm the project manager of Room 13 and I do all the projects.
Hi, I'm Fiona.
And I'm James.
And we're the librarians. Our job is to keep the library neat and organised.
And to stack the books.
I'm Amber.
I'm Lauren and we're the press. And we write the newsletters.
I'm Jamie Lee.
I'm Carrie.
And I'm Emma Jane.
We're studio monitors.
We work together to clean Room 13
and help the little ones. I'm Keen and I clean the sink.
I'm Richard. I'm the acting chairperson of Room 13 at the moment. I'm also the artist in residence.
I'm Colin. I'm the assistant chairperson.
I'm the resident artist in Room 13, and that involves me being here, making my work, developing as an artist, and also working with the kids that come into the studio. Much of my work is to do with the landscape, to do with being in the land. So it's a good place to be, just to look out the window and see the changing weather patterns and things like that. These are the things that interest me. It's quite, it's a good opportunity for me, and it's great to be involved with something like Room 13, which has existed here in this area for almost 20 years. So it's kind of, a well-established residency within Lochaber. It's quite a unique place to be.
These are the portraits from the portrait project that we did from employees of TBWA, a global company. These people paid money for their portraits to be done. This challenge was very hard to do, and other Room 13 studios took part in this project.
This is Erin Laurie's canvas, which is not named. She's used a range of blues and reds. The background is wavy and the triangles seem to be sweating. Some people think it's a mirage or a nice lolly. Natasha Gregor thinks it's like a story but in colours, and the purple bit looks like desert hills and then the sky.
We raise our money from our photos. Take individual and class photos to sell to raise money for our studio. There's a small photography team that work with Richard to learn skills and take photos. Room 13 has done this since 1994 and will carry on doing it for a long time.
So in my role as artist in residence, I try and step back as often as possible as the adult. I try not to impose what I think is the best way all the time. I prefer for somebody to approach me with a work that they've started, and from there we can have a conversation about that. And I think that's one of the strong points of working in this way and in this environment, is that it's the conversation and the talking about the unique work by the unique individual is, that's what really makes this place the place that it is. I think it's really quite a unique way of learning and of exploring things. That's the most important thing, I think, is to be able to explore things, but in a very free way, without too many constraints and without being too worried about what the end result is going to be, but just knowing that we're learning and exploring different things all the time. So having this extra space in a school, I think, is quite exciting. But the important thing is that Room 13 doesn't really replace anything. It's just something that's extra, something that's there that can stimulate a bit of thought and a bit of curiosity. So it's a good place to be.
Let's change this world for good. Roll up, hands up, hands up. Let's change this world for good. Roll up, hands up, hands up. Let's change this world for good. Roll up, jump up, jump up. Let's change this world for good.
I think that says it all, but I ask you the question. Well, hands up, those who are involved as teachers. Hands up, the teachers in this room. Wow, gosh.
Hands up the non-teachers.
Hands up those who are not teachers, but who are involved in creative work. Ah, fantastic. Hands up those who are now determined that every school in Spain, every school in Bilbao has to have a room 13. Hands up. If you don't, you're going to have an educational system which doesn't work. I'm sorry, it doesn't. I know. Now, I must explain to you that I have a reputation I've presented over 3,000 theatre productions. Oh, is that in the Guinness Book of Records? 3,000 exhibitions. Nobody has done more. I've been to every single Edinburgh Festival. But I now know I've lived long enough, thank God. Thanks to my guardian angel and to the Holy Ghost working overtime. I'm still standing here. Speaking to children, and all of you, I don't want to denigrate you and say that you're not artists. Everyone is an artist. You understand? Yes. And if you're not an artist, you're a danger to yourself and to society. Especially if you have money and power and you work with people who manipulate society, so you never take a risk. Now these children are encouraged to be themselves. So what is this stupid educational system I see, which is completely controlled by examination systems? And I must point out, every child uses the creative language of visual language. This conference is all about speaking, the spoken or written communication. But you can communicate, as the Chinese have said, better in one painting, one image, than in 1,000 words. So, I'm asking you, does the Guggenheim at Bilbao need the spirit of room 13? Yes. You agree? Because it doesn't have it. I can't see any image to do with the great museums of the world involving, seriously, the lives of children. I'm going to tell you right now that I am going to have an extension of the ECOP conference during the Edinburgh Festival this year. It has to be this year because next year is the 70th birthday of the Edinburgh Festival, and the Edinburgh Festival is in real trouble. Because now, the Edinburgh Festival brings to Edinburgh £170 million every year. It's a money-making machine. And it was founded on the basis in 1947 that the language of art was the language of healing the wounds of war. Can you imagine what Europe was like in 1947? I was alive. Hands up those who were alive in 1947. Nobody. Well, there's one person, thank God. Now, you are attending the most important part of this conference. Because there's no other part of the conference discussing the serious issue of the interface between education and culture. And already this morning, I've spoken to representatives of the government, including the British government, on the importance of Room 13 and the language of art. They just hand that yeah. In 1995, when I was only, how old was I? 75, a young person. I was asked to give the Adam Smith lecture. Why did they give it to me? Because everyone who's given it before were big money people, bankers, experts on the movement of money. I represent a country where the National Bank, the Bank of Scotland, was proved to be completely corrupt. You understand? It's still corrupt. The Royal Bank of Scotland is also corrupt because bankers don't take creativity seriously. They don't even know how to handle money. Money is not flowing through society. So our society increases the number of homeless and poor people and increases the number of people who are very rich.
Richard, can you stand just there? Sorry, I think there are one or two people at the back who are not able to.
No, I'm sorry about that. I am asking you all to consider the fact that we can't just meet this once. This is too important an issue. If we're going to save our planet, then we have to consider how we involve Pope Francis in what we're talking about, because it is not a question of how we deal with the gases which are destroying the air we breathe. It's a question of education. And this group of human beings that you're looking at represent the 21st century. They are going to be alive through the dangerous and challenging years that are to come. And I hope that their experience of being creative will remain with them all their lives. Now, I'm asking you to consider the fact that when I gave this lecture, I entitled it in the words of Joseph Beuys, who is arguably, he was the founder of the Green Party, co-founder in Germany after the war, but he was also a very famous artist. And when I asked him, what is your art, Joseph? He said, my art is my teaching. He was the most committed teacher. And he said his job was to use the language of art to create something called social sculpture. That is not just sculpture decorating the streets, but using the language of art to reconstruct the very nature of our society so that the flow of money is no longer a poison in society. Like if the blood that we have in our bodies was poisonous, we would soon die. We have a poisonous controlling energy in our lives, which is the flow of money. Can you imagine the stupidity of the idea of Europe without Greece? God, we're bonkers. That's the only word I can use. I don't know what the Spanish version of bonkers is, but it is mad that we have said that we can see a future for Europe without Greece. So I believe that we cannot bind Europe together merely by the euro. We have to find another binding force, and that is the language of art, which, according to Joseph Beuys, was the language of love. We are all born to exercise our capacity to love. Everyone. And art is the expression of love. Love for the sky. Love for human beings, animals, plants. It is the one language we have to show that we are in love. We all become poets when we discover that we're in love. And so I believe it is the one language that we have to take seriously, and we cannot have an educational system which doesn't recognize that. Now I'm old enough to be older than practically everybody I speak to. And 85% of everybody that I've ever loved and respected are now dead. That's what happens. How do I communicate? How do I communicate with everyone that I call the communion of souls? Maybe not saints, but souls. I have to use the language of art. No point in using the language of politics. That's for the next 10 minutes, isn't it? 20 minutes, 2 years. I want to use the one language which crosses every boundary of class, of nationality, of lifetime. So, Kunst ist Kapital, Joseph Beuys said, because he was German. Kunst ist Kapital. If you translate that into English, you can make a fool of yourself. Because the English, using this language of theirs, only think nowadays that Kunst is art and Kapital is money. But in the old German culture, Kapital means the value of every human being in terms of their physical energy, what they do with their hands, their knees, their feet, their elbows, their voice, and what they do combining that energy with their intellectual energy, their rational thoughts. But there's a third element, which is the most important. These two energies, which can make you famous, physical, can make you an Olympic winner. These two energies are dangerous without the third. And the third is the language of love. From here, from the heart. Not from the head, not from the feet, not from the arms, but from here. And so, can you imagine? I now know that the Edinburgh Festival and all festivals need the dimension of education and the world of Room 13. How do I bring them together? Can I rely on Spain? Oh, by the way, is there anybody here in the audience who's not Spanish? Oh my gosh, it's international. Wonderful. Where are you from? Sweden. Sweden? Oh, for God's, who else? From where? Ecuador. Oh, how wonderful. Because I'm seeing now that this language is an international language. These children have been speaking to Ecuador, okay, to Australia. This room 13, not in Ecuador, but in Australia, and in Sweden. I want you to consider my impossible task when later I will try to explain that art for me is not what you see just in the Guggenheim, okay? It's what you see in the classroom. Now, I need your names and addresses if you want to continue a dialogue with me, and if you want to hear what I have to say later. What time is it? 2:15 in room E. Because I will introduce my colleague Douglas, who thankfully is a lawyer. I need the language of the law to save me from injustice. But I need the kind of lawyer who is a patron of the arts. And that is what he is. He needs the arts. He cannot live without it. The language. And I'm going to ask if there's any question that you might feel inclined. Oh, by the way, you see the definition of art. Where was it? Is that? Yeah, that one. Can I give you a definition of art? I love the one of Picasso, but I'll give you another one. Art is all that cannot be suppressed. And that is someone called Louis Dans. And Hippocrates said it all when he said, life is short, art is long. Vita brevis, art longa. And the other thing, Robert Browning, the British poet, said, art remains the only way possible of speaking truth. So why is it not used by all these politicians who meet so regularly and, in the European Union? Yes, I did receive the medal as the European Citizen of the Year, but I've got to go back and speak to the President of the European Parliament and say, listen, I spoke to people in Bilbao. You should go to Bilbao. It's more beautiful than Brussels, which is one of the ugliest cities I know. And you should see there is a spirit there which takes room 13 seriously. And can I say, art is the great refusal of the world as it is. That's Herbert Marcuse. So many great minds have actually taken the trouble. So I'm asking all of you to tell me what you think art is in relation to education if you're teaching. Okay? Now, how many of you have got my address? Because maybe you would want to communicate with me. Everybody is in disguise. I'm in disguise. Okay? Just because I've got a British passport, you might think I'm a Brit. I'm not. I'm a European. Therefore, I am part of a family of human beings who, for good or ill, influence the lives of the Americans. Poor souls. We could all be Americans, you know, and have the problem of 2 million people in prison. There must be something wrong with our society. 2 million. And I think that what you've just seen is how young people, I see we have to leave because people are coming in for the next lecture, young people deserve room 13. So if you can attend the next time we are speaking, It's about the history of the Edinburgh Festival with an educational dimension.
And ladies and gentlemen, just before you go, the best contact for Richard is richard@richarddemarco.org. richard@richarddemarco.org. richard@richarddemarco,
one word,
all one word, .org, O-R-G.
And I want to finish by saying this is an artist who has created Room 13 in Bilbao. You should thank her. All right? Heidi.